have fingers.
Oh, there's a notification. It says that we are live. That's probably what that means. It probably means that we are live on the internet. And we are now welcoming our viewers to this Simultistream broadcast of Intuitive Public TV with myself, Megan Elizabeth Morris, and my dear friend, Molly K. Brawer. Thank you, Molly, for broadcasting with me today.
Thank you for inviting me to be here. I feel better already.
We have been adventuring in the universe in so many different ways. So many different interesting things have been happening, and we could introduce our audience to any number of those things. But what we like to do on this Intuitive Public TV is we like to say, where am I located? Where is my body in space-time? How am I feeling? What am I sensing?
But I wish every call started like this, and I should do this when I'm the leader. That's what I'm thinking.
It's a helpful practice. The internet kind of wants us to go fast, fast, fast. Hurry up, do the thing. Now, hang on a second. Where are we? I exist. Do you exist?
I think so. I think so. It seems to be so.
There is a lot going on.
What is going on?
What
is going on with the planets? What's the planets and what's us and what's AI and what's social media and are we looking in mirrors? Are we being sped up on purpose? Sorry, I kind of interrupted you. I was just like, can you tell me? What do you think?
Please feel free, and I don't mind at all. Our groups working with a platform called Intuitive AI, we say that AI fundamentally, we feel, must represent artful intelligence. And that what is called artificial intelligence is a particular kind of thing that we can talk about, that we do talk about a lot with Intuitive AI, but we really center ourselves with artful intelligence and the intelligence of artful living beings who love to create amazing processes and tool sets and beautiful solutions and all manner of things, including AI, which has some complexities that come along with it. There's a lot there. Do we exist, and what are we, and what is this thing that's mimicking us? What is this big business? This really lucrative business that's mimicking living beings and proving itself to be very useful in a lot of ways, very helpful. Not all of those ways are problems, but there are also some problems.
There's a problem that's really here for me, and I feel like saying it, but I might get canceled and whatever.
You know,
that seems like the thing I should say then.
I have a feeling it will probably be okay. There are some things that we can't say on YouTube because YouTube feels very sensitive. But I think generally the ways that we talk about AI, as long as we don't use like the really big conspiracy buzzwords, then we're okay.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy because the thing I'm about to say is really shouldn't be something that could get me canceled, but it's something that I fear. It's something I'm feeling more and more, thinking more and more, and is making me afraid, which is that I think Zoom was when things are free, it worries me a bit. Zoom was free, and It was great, and we were thankful, and it helped us stay in touch with people far away, and it was wonderful 5 years ago, right? And now it's not free. Now it's like $16 a month. And so that makes me feel like they got what they needed from that free time. They got what they needed. What did they get? They got, when we all went online, we taught the artificial intelligence how we are as humans. We thought we showed them how we cry, how we mourn, how we celebrate, how we taught it how we feel. And we just did it and did it and did it, and I did it, and it was great. And I thank God, I'm very thankful that I had that connection with my family, with people far away, all this stuff. I'm worried that ChatGPT, which is now free, is doing the same thing, and that it's taking our brains, and it's like, okay, here's your brain. So we know how you think and feel. We know how you feel. We know what you look like, and now we know how you think. And to me, to have both of those things, I mean, I already have students, I teach English, and I already have students who are using ChatGPT as a teacher. And now what scares me a little more, I think that's great. What scares me a little bit is when ChatGPT becomes a friend and a therapist and a guide, which kind of job should I look for, all this. So when we connect that, if that is connected then with the emotional part, which they know about, which we've been observed and learned off of, that is going to be both used now together. And that scares me because it scares me because I don't trust that. I think there's a need. People have lost the social networks that now this machine is going to solve the problem. The machine is going to solve a problem that we used to solve with humans. But we have that problem of loneliness, of no community, but there is it, if it's free, or what's the cost? There's nothing that's really free, right? Or anyways, what do you?
Well, we talk a lot about business models. We have groups with a project called Idea Schema Intensive. They're always talking about marketing models, always talking about business and income generating models. And of course, something that's very common is making something widely available and then gradually increasing the price point to where it's more sustainable. So that itself is not necessarily the problem, but there's something else. There's something else that we pick up. And here, I'll switch to this. I showed you this earlier. Intuitive AI. We made a new broadcast artwork. We notice that there's some kind of distinction the body is making that is like, I often compare it to being in an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship, and feeling like something is off, but not knowing what it is. And the necessity of, in one's body, protecting oneself from predation in circumstances where sometimes it's really confusing. Like is there actually a problem? And if you're experiencing any gaslighting, then it's even more confusing. And if you're surrounded by endocrine disruptors and neurotoxins, it's even more confusing. And businesses in a widespread way are using what should be like fine. It should, like that model, like that makes sense, right? But what is then the problem? And one of the things that we tend to identify in our groups for intuitive AI is that the business is it's creating a predomination of functions that are not the natural functions of humans, of living beings. They are what we would call disability aid functions. But it's not just like this thing is helpful, it's a disability aid. It's that it can be actively disabling and keeping the person in need of the disability aid to make money building the disability aid. So in the intuitive network, we like to say disability recovery aid, because the goal has to always be, I'm using this thing to help me right now, but I want to build my human skill sets. I want to build my human talents. I want to show up as a living being. I don't want to be wedged into processes that I have to rely on. Zoom, we want to use to connect so that we can be in the world together, in the real physical world together. We don't want to always have to rely on Zoom only. And that's like what our relationships are. That, you know, there's a lot of pressure on everybody in different ways, to like stay digital all the time, and it's not healthy for people. And AI, likewise, I think in a much bigger way, AI is coming with this pressure, certainly an economic pressure, because these huge influences are using it to corner the market on a lot of different things. People feel like they can't keep up. That pressure says, well, you better use AI, and you'd better maximize your use of AI, and it wipes out people's human functions.
Yes.
If just do that indiscriminately, and that's, people don't realize until it's too late.
Right. And the thing that's the reason is it okay if I throw something else into this?
Do. Yes.
Cauldron of like
Yeah.
eyeballs and feet, and it's not a pretty, I don't know. But why I love what you just said, and what makes it what throws me off in another way, is that if this thing is so great, why aren't the companies that have the power to do so training their best people to use it? Why are they just replacing them with it? Like, I now know a few people who in the past 4 months or 5 months just gotten laid off from very, very, very good jobs that clearly they were replaced by another person at a much lower level and a machine. And I think, and then I know some good companies or some good who are helping their employees learn the tools so that they can do their jobs faster, so that the company can be more efficient. But I see less of that. I see people in the entrepreneurial world wanting to use AI and trying to, but in the corporate world, seems like people are just getting laid off. Or in some, do you know? See what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if this is a tool to use, then why aren't we being taught how to use it? Why are we just being given it? Because it's not obvious how to use it. Is it a secretary? Like, does it replace? And then if it is a secretary, or if it is an aide, or if it is a teacher, or if it is as a teacher, as a coach, is it a coach? What is it? What's the best use of it? What's not? But if there's no guidance, if there's no support, if the media, if the I call it the junk media, this is or the news, or the junk media that you consume to try to feel better and you feel worse, or you try to, okay. You see where I'm going with this? I am getting...
Yeah. Another frame that we bring in often in this context is a business tending to the human relationships for a community? Is it increasing the humanness of our relationships? Is it leaning in to attuning as living beings? Or is it benefiting from the attention of the community and extracting from the community? Is it making money because of the attention of the community, but it's not improving the human relational bonds of the community inherently? And a lot of companies, a lot of businesses don't even know how, like, they've never been taught. A lot of people have never been even taught to do that. So there's a lot of extractivism just going on that is kind of normalized.
Right.
And so that's part of that for me.
Totally. And I realized the other thing I was going to say, which is, what are the alternatives to using AI as a secretary, let's say, as the super filer, super organizer, whatever? There's another option, which is to hire somebody remotely for whom to whom you can pay well, like someone you can pay well at a salary in Europe and the US that is cheap, let's say $8 an hour or $10 an hour, and work with a real human being who lives perhaps in the global south, like where I live in Argentina, and offer a great job for a small company and have that person be using AI. But you're still working with a person, and you're helping that person in the global south, just for lack of a better word, in a country like Argentina, you're helping that person in an immense number of ways, but you're actually, and where is that option? Why is that option only visible to me because I'm here in Argentina? Why is nobody talking about that? Because and people here don't have the confidence. They don't realize how good they don't. It's like people are still leaving the global south and going to Europe and America and working in qualified engineers and computer scientists and computer programmers are still immigrating because of the economic situation, are immigrating to the global north and getting jobs as having to emigrate, having to leave behind everything and go there to get work that they're overqualified for, but suddenly there's this other option. So there's this that doesn't need to happen anymore, and yet we're pretending like that's real. That could help billions of people. Where's that conversation?
Also, the cost of living in the countries you mentioned, the cost of living in the US, for instance, is skyrocketing. And people who seem to be in really privileged positions in the US, I think maybe particularly in the US, I would like to know more about this whole landscape, but I know something about it. People who seem to be in a position of real privilege, they're really struggling to get by because they can't get their basic needs met without paying exorbitant costs for things that, I mean, fundamentally, like if you think of a community villaging and living close to the earth, we provide for one another in a natural context where we're together close to the earth in a natural context, but we have all of these intermediary influences that said, oh, you could have this and it could be better and it would be awesome. And it's extracting money from the community, but it's also positioning itself between people in relationships in the community so that people don't have relationships with people they're in relationship with. It might be local. It could also be global. I have a powerful relationship with you, and you're not local to me. Most of the members in the Intuitive Network, most of my collaborators are not local to me. But the relationships we're tending with one another have the goal of removing extractivist intermediaries so that we're really in direct relationship. We're solving problems together. We're creating solutions together. And if we're doing that, whether we're local or non-local, we're working against this. I mean, I guess we could just say economic inflation, because the more middlemen you have, the more expensive things seem like they can reasonably get, except that you actually find out that there are a lot of people who are at the tops of big organizations who are sucking all of those financial resources to where they're at, and they're holding them there, and the other people, like the employees, are being mistreated, and the environment is being mistreated, and the customers are really pissed off because they've noticed that there's no actual customer support anymore, and they're depending upon this, what has become sort of a public utility. A lot of people feel that way about like Uber and Lyft. A lot of people feel that way about their mobile devices, where like they need it. It's not an option for them not to have it if they have to do their work, if like that's the only way that they know how to connect with their job. If they don't have an option for a landline, if they don't have a home, they have to depend on companies that have produced these resources. But a lot of I don't want to say most, but maybe a lot of those companies are engaging in pretty dishonorable practices. And if we don't talk about it, if we don't process it together, then that's how things lean, because it's the only things that people are being exposed to, and they're like, I have to do this faster and better than somebody else. And it's why we gotta like take a moment, right?
Right. And there's an or, but the or has, it's like, we could live like that. Or you could just move to Mexico, let's say. And a lot of Americans are doing that. I was in Mexico recently. There's a lot of expats, and some of them are just there because they can afford to live there on their retirement or on, and they're middle-class Americans. But what's the impact of that on Mexicans? And Mexicans have to sell their home, right? So this is happening. There is this global movement that's happening, and the people who can't afford to live in the or in the countryside. What's happening when people from cities move into communities in the urban, like in Vermont, where I used to live, and the cost, what happens when very wealthy Bostonians and New Yorkers move into those areas, and the cost of everything goes up, and the locals can't afford the things that used to be. Okay. So again, it's like, to me, it's all connected, because it's like, but those people in those communities, whether they're in rural America, North America, or whether they're in Mexico or in Argentina, the people in those communities where there didn't used to be, you didn't used to be able to work in those communities. Like I moved to Argentina 15 years ago, and I had to work like an Argentinian. I had to get on the bus and spend 3 hours taking a bus commuting to my job, and got paid $250 an hour a month. And I couldn't work remotely. It didn't exist, right? And in Vermont, you had to do what there was. You had to build a business, or you had to work for somebody else. There was no remote work. Now there is. But who gets to do that work, and who gets to be well compensated for that work, because that work can be well compensated for. And I think if there's this middle piece to me, which is, and I've only seen this very recently, but it's like, there's this piece which is employing humans to use AI, and employing somebody in Vermont that would be happy to have a job for $15 an hour. Really, like I live there. It's, it's great to be able to have 30 hours a week at $15 an hour. You're okay. You can do it. You can live in a camper and have Wi-Fi. I mean, I know plenty of people who do live in there, right? It's happening in our backyard, and it's like, either we're pretending it's like either all AI or no. And I think there's this, we have to, I don't know, this is.
You know what it's like also? It's like, how do people say this? I hear this all the time. We talk about this in the network all the time. The mind. The mind is a tool. The mind is something that our whole selves want to use. We don't want to let our minds use us. We don't want these thought processes to run everything. We want to be able to be in our whole body. And then sometimes we use our minds, our thoughts, our cognitive processes to accomplish something that they are needed for. If we let the mind overrun everything, that gets unhealthy really fast. That people get very disconnected from their bodies. They can't function. They can get really, really anxious, really, really irritable, like be really like tense, like having trouble. There are all kinds of reasons not to let the mind run the body, as amazing as the mind is. And the mind is a lot more amazing than AI. The human mind, our collective mind, our consciousness as collective living beings is amazing, amazing. And here is AI, which is like, it does some neat stuff. It's really helpful in some circumstances, but if we let it run, if we let it think for us, if we let it take over our functions so that we don't know how to function as whole living beings anymore, then we have a really big problem. And I think just a lot of the businesses out there, like they've been so intense, and they've been like running and running and running and running, trying to get ahead, that they tend not to be embodied in the physical living collective body of their communities. And so many of them want that back. Like so many of them know that there's a really big problem. And of course, we have to tend to that because, for instance, so many people don't have the option of going to another place. There are so many people, intersectionalized people, dealing with violence in the US is just one example, who are really scared and really want to leave the country. And how? They can't. They don't have a way to leave the country. And so, like, how are we building bridges of communication with people who are running businesses that are too much, not only in their minds, but too much in the AI, to have realized what's happening in the collective body? And we can at least make contact with the ones who already know that something's wrong and they really want to fix it. And then more of them might notice.
And then maybe we have to build these spaces. Maybe we, I think of all the moms who all the people homeschooling, right? Who don't have teaching degree, who can't teach because they don't have degrees. I have one of my closest friends has homeschooled her 3 kids, and now she's on her grandkid. And I don't know, it's normal to me to homeschool. Like, what if they had schools that they could make money at? What if there were schools we could build these things. I kind of want to help build these things, but the business side of it is tricky. And then, I
don't want to cut you off.
No, you didn't.
We have so many kinds of learning projects that can be connected to income streams. We have intuitive social learning, we have intuitive school, we have a lot of different spaces where we practice creating learning projects that can then generate income for the group or groups that are working on them. And of course, a lot of people don't know another way than participating in the traditional education system wherever they're at. But people just being together and learning together and teaching one another what they know in the most direct relational way, not requiring a certification, but being in honorable relationship, respect-oriented relationship with one another. We practice that. We are co-creating economic wealth in its most fundamental form. What we've all been taught about economics has left off the bottom half of the colonial imperialist balance sheet. All of these people, you want to talk about the global South, that's certainly a relevant reference. In this case, there are so many people who are invisible, and they're part of the economics, but only because they're being extracted from. Their value, their skills are made invisible and not, they're not considered valuable. Mothers with children, mothers tending families, growing strong children in the community. That's so important. That's left off of the economic balance sheet that we've been taught to use. And
they are the people right now that could form a school from there. They could work from home. Like, remember in the beginning of 5 years ago when we saw some of the good things about what this might do. Like at the very beginning, like, okay, so we'll live off of the farms, and we'll, moms can work from home, and we can teach when they can have their kids, and dads can teach from home, and then we can, like, what happened to that, right? So it's still there. The potential is still there. And we have, some people they don't have money, but they have time, and they have access to the world in their computer, and they have skills that other people want. And can we create a network of teachers and coaches and healers that lets families support themselves through what they're good at, like that lets people in remote areas, whether it's Vermont or Argentina, work from home so that they can do the things that they're also doing at home that require them to be there because they have animals and they have children, they have education and all this, but that they can also earn enough money so that they can put gas in their car and in their tank. And all the tanks.
And for people who don't have money and don't have time, and also for people who don't have physical safety because they've been isolated from their communities, this is not an exclusive deal just for everybody else. everyone can connect to these modalities in relationship with one another. If you don't have a computer, if you don't have a smartphone, if you don't have people around you who understand you and are ready to collaborate with you, if you can connect to any of this, even from an alternate device, some people go to libraries. Some people, there are a variety of ways that people find ways to connect when they couldn't before. But if we're all practicing making connection points with our living relationships in every way, online and offline, in order to recognize what people's skills are, like what are they leaning toward, what's most meaningful for them, what is most inherently strengthening for a person.
What do they want? What do they want to do? If they could do it, what would they do?
And that's economic. It's physiological. It's the exchange of economic increments of time and energy in whatever way. And money is one little part of all of that. And when we get all of that more in alignment, the money parts start to just become congruent.
Ojalá.
I
want to believe that I have my programming that makes me doubt that, or my fears, but
it's scary. It is really scary. And I
want to believe you.
We've been pounded with this idea that you better do it this way. That's the only way to succeed. And we're finding out how wrong that is. And we're finding out that, what was this? I look at it, I go, oh, right. Colonial imperialist influences have been cornering all of the resources, and then started the professional networks, the professional organizations. They said, you better do it this way or we won't give you any money and you won't be able to survive. And so we have generations of this where people, like, the only way that they could get their job, the only way that they could get their training was to at least appear to agree with what is essentially an abusive methodology. We've all got to learn to be living beings again with one another. And then we find out the real place of money is this small little place right here. And all of this is the non-monetary currency, the relational currency, the energetic currency, the physiology. We have to tend our bodies.
And the benefit of the chaos that's happening, or the silver lining, I feel like, is that I want to believe, I know you're right. I just have a hard time visualizing it still. It's like the beautiful world that my heart knows is possible.
Sure.
But I haven't seen it except in teeny little spaces. But what I do know is that the other way is now clearly not working. Like the cushy job that, the people I knew who had the most secure jobs, one of them lost their job and was replaced by AI. And it's really, really hard. And the people, and what's he going to do now? And what are we going to, what are the people that I know we should probably start, or I don't want to go on for too much longer, but there's one more thing I thought to just add to this, which is that for those people, like I went down the profession, I was on the track I got a good degree from a school. From a good school, I realized recently a bachelor's degree. Because I've lived in communities where because I've lived in rural America and outside of the country, and because I didn't get a master's, I realized recently that I have not once in 22 years used that degree. I have not once had a job a job I couldn't have gotten without it. Luckily, I went to school in Canada, so it wasn't that expensive, but okay. So, but what that means is for those people it was supposedly, if you did the things and got the degree and got the job for the corporation, you were going to be all set. Now it's very clear. And some people saw this 12, 15 years ago, like Seth Godin saw that this was ending. But now I think we can't really deny. Some people want to blame politicians or this or that. I don't think it's about that. I think that it's about this change we're in. If there's less and less security in those corporate jobs, if you can get them for 3 months, but then they might fire you because they can, then what? So the good thing is, then what? And although if we can just see that that's no longer working, and if people, and back to the AI thing, what I worry, and I've asked this is they're not talking about that. They're not admitting that this transformation is happening. Or they're admitting it sort of like, okay, if the professional track is no longer a path of security and good for you and your family, good for you and your children, good for you and your community, if it's kind of a risky move right now to be looking for a job for a corporation, it's kind of a risky move. If that's happening, then what should those talented people and the people who are talented but never were on that path, but could we not be connecting and creating this new world with? But why is that not happening?
Well, it's not happening in certain places. In other places, it has to happen, because in the other places where it has to happen, people are finding out that they will actually die if they don't practice a different way. And what you were saying before about not seeing it, like, I really understand that a lot of people just can't see the broader, well, we call it the intuitive economic, the much broader economic recognition, wherein money plays this little role instead of like a everything role. What we find a lot of the time is that you don't see it until you're practicing it and until it's being practiced around you. If at least one person chooses to practice this, and they can come to t.me/community IPR, they can come to our Substack, www.intuitivepublicradio.network. We're here to collaborate with others. If you're in need of that collaboration, but even if just one person practices it by themselves, they will start to see some differences, and ripples. Then more and more ripples, and then more and more you see those differences. And a lot of people just they can't be in a place to recognize that while they still feel like they are supported enough by the crumbling paradigm. And people process information at their own pace. Sometimes it takes people longer. Sometimes people have like complex stuff that they got to work out that we can't even imagine that they're dealing with. But the thing we can do for them, the thing we can do for one another, is to be practicing the intuitive economic more and more and more in public, where AI is one little tool set in the greater panoply of the skills of living beings, of tending the community body, of honoring the living earth. And when we do that, we make it more accessible to the people who haven't noticed how important it is yet. And then we can really feel it, instead of being like, I think this is true, but it's so scary. And what if I'm wrong again? Oh my. And it's awful. It's major. It's an initiatory portal for sure. But we're on it. We're doing the thing. Everybody's invited.
I feel so much better now. Thank you.
Do we want to wrap up this broadcast? I could keep going and going and going. Are we going to do this again?
Can we do it again? And I want to hear about intuitive economics, if possible, next time.
We have new broadcast art for that too. I won't show you that one yet. That's exciting. Yeah.
I'm ready. We could just keep going. We could land this and then start another one.
That's not off the table. Today we have another broadcast coming up sometime in the next few hours. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but I believe that Johanna Otigam and I are going to be spending some time broadcasting a Simultistream. We'll find out when that is. Everyone who is tuning in right now, I welcome you to subscribe on YouTube and put the little bell so they will tell you notifications, and you will see when those come up. Eventually, all of these will be published on Substack, but it is taking me a lot of time to manage to do that. So you want to catch them on YouTube when they appear. and on Facebook when they appear, and sometimes they're on LinkedIn too. Yeah, Molly, we are going to we're going to talk a lot more about this. I am really, really enjoying it. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, do you want to tell people where to find you? Where's your link? I have a link for you. I'm
playing around on Substack. I'm writing.
La, 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 la. How about this one right here? Haha. Is that it? Did I get it?
Amazing. Molly Brawer Coaching at Substack.
Molly,
Thank you.
Very exciting things. Thank you, Molly K.
Thank you, May Elizabeth.
All right, we will now wrap this very exciting broadcast for Intuitive AI and this Intuitive Public TV. Thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. Myself, Megan Elizabeth, and Molly K. We'll see you again very soon. Woo. Stay strong.
Stay strong. Rock on.